What can we learn from the ChatGPT 5 launch from a human behavior psychology perspective? So, today we're going to go over 3 insights that you can use from this launch in your next launch or design of AI features. Okay, here we go. So, this is what we were dealing with before. Isn't this wild? And ChatGPT knew this was bad, right? There was a long list of models with unclear descriptors and, like O3 was actually many times better than O4, but like it was defaulted to O4. Like, what? And so thank you, ChatGPT, because what you did here was pretty reasonable, right? What you did is basically say, look, we're just going to default to O5 and we're going to take away those other models. And not only that, 5 is going to automatically switch between models. And this is interesting because it's also extremely cost effective for somebody. So it's in the user's best interest to do this because imagine that you would always pick the best model. Now you're always paying for the best model, but you don't need that for simple queries. And so this auto selector of models is actually quite ingenious and pro consumer. And so the question is, why did people hate it? People hated it. And this is really goes to a core of human behavior that people hate losing things. So, by and large, one of the big reasons that people didn't like this launch is we were ripped from our grasp before, right? People liked 4, and now it's taken away from them. And so, this, in essence, is loss aversion. We could also say it's endowment effect. Endowment effect and loss aversion are cousins. Endowment is saying, I own something, I value it more because I own it. People actually did own this model, like they were paying for it, and it's taken from them. And so, obviously, people are upset. And so, that's one thing. The second thing is that people hate change. So we don't like it. Netflix basically has famously said that when they launch a new algorithm, they wait days to figure out if it works because if they look at the immediate results, people hate it because we hate change, not because we hate the algorithm. So you have to wait a while until people get used to it, and then you can actually measure, is this new algorithm good or not? And ChatGPT basically kind of forgot that about human behavior. They were really logical, right? It is crazy that we were selecting a model. This is in the AI world. Why would we let humans select the model? AI should be selecting the model for us, but they forgot the core insight on human behavior, which is we do not like change and we do not like loss. And so all of that combined got them this launch. Now, if we were them, we'd basically say, well, then how do you make a change? Well, there's kind of 2 theories here. One is, look, you can't just surprise people. If you run any kind of B2B software, you know that you have to warn your users that you are changing something. There's big pop-ups that say, like, we're redesigning this page, get ready. And that's not going to take the full sting away, but it is going to give you a little bit of cushion that people knew this was coming. They knew a change was coming. And so they're not angry at you. They're annoyed at the change, but they're not angry. We really felt that anger. The second thing here is that this was a lot of pain for what could have been a UI fix, right? Where they're ending up in this position, which is basically like, look, we're auto deciding it for you. You can then manually choose instant versus thinking. But you could have imagined a world where they just make sure that this drop down thing looks way better in the beginning. And then you launch ChatGPT 5 and people are obviously going to stick with the default anyway. But now this is reconciled. And that's kind of where they got to. It was just pretty painful along the journey. And you obviously have then them bringing back the legacy model for people who just want their their old one, right? And it taught us all a lesson about change and loss. Okay. The second thing that I would call out here is this model good? And that is kind of the main question that the internet is asking, right? Is this model good? And I think it's great, but it doesn't seem like the internet thinks it's great. And so one of the questions is, why is that? And this idea of basically auto doing it for people could be one of the reasons. So the second insight here is about willingness to pay. And hold with me for a second, we're going to get there. But Danny Ariely once gave the thought experiment of, would you be willing to pay for Google? Every Google search, would you be willing to pay for it? And kind of intuitively, we think, absolutely not. Like, no, Google's the internet. It's free. I'm not going to pay for it. But you really should, because all of these engineers are working, the best engineers, well, maybe not anymore. Maybe OpenAI has the best engineers. Maybe Facebook does. But all of these amazing engineers are working on your behalf to get the answer. This is highly valuable, and yet we're not willing to pay for it. And it's a lot because the theory is that it just happens so magically. It happens in the background. I'm not aware that all these engineers are working on my behalf to do something. And by the way, Louis C.K. also has a nice skit on this that basically is like you jump into an airplane, don't jump into an airplane. You're in an airplane, and the first time you experience Wi-Fi, you're like, this is crazy, right? When Wi-Fi was just launched in an airplane, it was wild. But then in the middle of the flight, the Wi-Fi goes out, and you're like, what? I don't have my Wi-Fi. And so we adapt really quickly to a new norm. And so you're adapting to this Wi-Fi in the sky, which is wild. But as soon as it changes, it's taken away a little bit, you now become angry at not having the Wi-Fi. So it is very quickly that humans will adapt to this magical world of AI, which just means that the value perceived from it will go down and our willingness to pay will go down. And so we have an opportunity, a fresh start in this product development community of AI to increase the perception of value of AI and not have it be this magical thing that happens in the background that you never have to pay attention to. And what I'm worried about for ChatGPT is by doing it for me, which is actually amazing and awesome, we've actually lost that attention. And if I'm not paying attention, I can't value it. And if I don't value it, I'm not willing to pay for it. And so this attention resource is really important as you're building an AI product to make sure people know how great it is. Because if they forget, there goes your business model. Okay. The third insight is actually one cool thing that ChatGPT did, which says, I don't know, right? The model before would hallucinate, and now it's saying, I don't know, which is wonderful because we can trust it more, right? Actually, though, can we? So what happens when people say, I don't know, or what happens when the LLM says, I don't know, and this is kind of a smaller experiment, about 400 people, that it actually decreases confidence in the system because it says, I don't know. That was kind of the correct answer, because if it says, I don't know, then maybe it doesn't know and you shouldn't trust it. But that's also, it should increase our trust that it will tell us that it says, I don't know, when it doesn't know, instead of hallucinating. And so it's a can't-win situation for ChatGPT here, which is basically displaying any level of not being confident will decrease my trust in the system. Now, it turns out that actually this is kind of like humans. And there are a couple studies, they're very low powered, so I would say this is directional, but like studies have been done on doctors and confidence in patients. So if a doctor says, look, I'm not exactly sure what your diagnosis is, or it is possible that you have this, or possible that you have this, or confidence plummets in them, right? If they say it more like, this is what you have, like we then believe them, even if they're not actually that sure. And so it is not to a doctor's benefit to display lack of confidence or certainty in a diagnosis, because then the patient will think they're an idiot. And so it's a conundrum, right? It's a conundrum in the LLM. It's a conundrum as a human, that actually displaying a lack of confidence is a hindrance, but actually it's the thing we should value. So hopefully in this new world, we will value this kind of uncertainty as a signal of trust. Okay, those are the three insights. That number one, don't take things away from people. At least tell them about it. Give them a lot of warning. We hate change. Number two is get people to pay attention to how great you are, because this salience is the thing that will drive willingness to pay. And number three, know that actually your AI is a lot like a human, and these signals that humans give each other are actually, we're good at paying attention to them, and we will pay attention to them when the LLM gives it to us as well. So studying human behavior still is this cornerstone of product development. Okay, if you like this, obviously subscribe to the Substack. Thank you. Email me at Kristen@rationallabs.com. We'd love to work on your product and say hello.